Here are the three most brutal and costly mistakes I've made as a real estate investor, so you don't have to. I've been investing since 2011. I've lost it all and gained it back. Now I own over 100 rental units. I own multiple real estate related businesses, and I want the same thing for you. But the problem is that most people are too scared to get started because they're afraid they're going to lose big. I know I was, and that's why I'm going to share with you the three biggest mistakes that I've made that most real estate investors make, and also how you can avoid those, what to do instead. Let's start with what I call the wave. Now, here's what happens when you buy real estate to flip either to the market or to hold as a rental. You end up buying this house, let's say for $100,000. This is the sales price over here. And your goal is to get that house sold for $200,000. You're going to do a $50,000 renovation. Now we're going to keep it simple here. So $50,000 renovation is including the other costs like insurance, interest, other holding costs. Let's just keep it simple here. $50,000 of costs, mostly renovation. Now, over the time that you hold this, let's say 6 months is what it's going to take you to do this project and sell the house or refinance it to hold as rental. Here you go. The house is worth $100,000. And then due to the work that you do, you get that to the value of $200,000. The difference between the $100,000 and the $200,000, this is $100K. You've made the house worth $100,000 more by the work that you have done to it. This $50,000 that you put into it is forced appreciation. It's a long word right there. Forced appreciation. That's what you do by doing work, manually forcing value, equity into that house. By your work of $50,000, you've made the house from $100,000 to now being worth $200,000, the new value of the house. That's forced appreciation. Now you would think, oh geez, $100,000, I only put 50 into it. That must be a great deal. But as a flipper or a fix and holder, you want to follow what we call the 70% rule. This is simple math for anybody who's going to buy a house. It's not rules. There's only one of them. So that's the 70% rule. And it's really simple. You take the after repair value of the house. That's what the house is going to be worth after you've forced appreciation into it. $200,000 is what you decide the after repair value is. That's what your real estate agent maybe tells you the comps are, the comparable properties. Other houses that are in similar shape in a similar neighborhood to yours are also selling for $200,000. You are taking the after repair value, the $200,000, times 70%. So 70% times $200,000, that's $140,000. So you take the $140,000, you subtract out the costs of $50,000, and that tells you what you should be paying for that house, which is $90,000. Amazingly, I didn't circle it properly, but that says $90,000. That is what you should have bought that property for. So clearly at this point, that is a bad deal, but that's where the problem comes in. This is what most people do because not everybody is aligned with you. You see, people that you work with are going to support this bad habit of yours, especially your real estate agent, and you're about to see why. Let's take this same example, except for what happens instead is that your real estate agent says, or maybe you convince yourself that, well, hey, gosh, the market is appreciating really fast. Homes are becoming worth more and more every day. And so if it's going to take me 6 months to finish that project, or probably more if you've ever done construction, I'm buying this house at $100,000. But by the time I get done with this house and put it on the market, it's going to be worth a lot more. Like I said, things are appreciating like crazy. This house is going to be worth $120K. when I get done with it, but I'm also forcing the appreciation into it, which that formula doesn't change. I put $50,000 into the house. that creates $100,000 worth of spread. So now, since this is worth $120K after the market rises, now I can sell this house for $220,000. Now this house, by no means other than the market, going from $100,000 to $200,000, that is called market appreciation. Those are the two real types of appreciation. I'm just going to say app there, not like an application, like appreciation. I am counting on this house base value going from $100,000 to $120,000. That's the market appreciation. Plus I get the forced appreciation by the work that I put into it of another $100,000. So now the house is going to sell for the $220K. And if you put that through the 70% rule, 220 times 70%, that equals $154K. You're doing the $50,000 renovation. Can you see that? Now, my new purchase price could be 104. So I'm actually getting a deal by buying it 100. Did you follow that? Now that I think the new ARV of the house is going to be $220K, I take the 70% rule, multiply that by 70%. I come up to 154 minus the costs of $50,000. I get 104. That's telling me what I should purchase the house at. I'm purchasing it at 100, so 4,000 less than what the 70% rule tells me. Getting a great deal. The problem is the market appreciation. You don't know that the market is going to continue to appreciate like it has in the past. Sometimes markets fall. You see, what people count on is that real estate over time does appreciate. That's the beauty of real estate. I made a whole video about why I flip houses or invest in real estate. And real estate is absolutely beautiful in that way. It will always go up in value, or at least it has historically gone up in value. So it looks like this over time. This is years over time. It goes up. But the thing is, that's not what it looks like if you zoomed in a little bit. What it looks like is more like this. Over time, it's going up, but in that time, it's going up and down. So when you count on market appreciation in a flip or a rental refinance, well, you might hit one of the troughs, one of the valleys in this graph, and that would put you in a bad position. So when you're investing in real estate, you never want to count on the wave. You never want to count on the market appreciation. You only count on what you know to be true, is that you bought that house at $100,000. That's its base value. It's going to be worth $100,000 the day you go to sell it, except for whatever appreciation you force into it by the renovation that you do. So 3 steps here to avoid disaster for yourself. Number 1 is, remember, I said that the real estate agent is definitely wanting to count on that market appreciation, because if they tell you they can sell the house for $220,000, well, you'll be more than likely signing up with them, as opposed to the person who says, well, I don't know. I don't think we should count on market appreciation. So right now, if you do a $50,000 renovation, it's probably only going to be worth $200,000. But this other guy is saying, hey, we can probably do 220 when you get done with that. Who are you going to sign with? Yeah, that's what I thought. So first is you need to verify your comps. You need to verify the ARV, the after repair value of that house. You need to know how to assess the value of the house. And the real estate agent or anybody else you work with, they are there to confirm what you already knew, not give you that answer. Number 2 is you need to follow the 70% rule. I actually have a calculator on my website that is a little bit more advanced than the 70% rule, but you really don't need it. 70% rule always works out. If you follow that, you figure out your costs correctly, you are going to come out in the good at the end there. And number 3 is never, ever count on market appreciation. I'm not going to write all that out because I have really bad handwriting and it's getting long. There we go. Market appreciation. Now, that leads me to the next big mistake that most investors make. And in fact, this next one, most people don't ever realize they're making the mistake. They just always kind of don't make the money that they want to make, never realizing that this is the problem. So we can use the same type of example that we were using before. And this is so common. I definitely did this when I was starting out as well. Now, to help you understand, let's take that first example. Let's say that you've learned your lesson here, bought it $100,000, and over time, over forcing the appreciation, you are going to increase the value of that house by $100,000. Okay, that's what this neighborhood looks like. So here are the sales prices in this neighborhood. Let's say 90K, 100K, 110, blah, 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 blah. Then you have $200,000, 210, 220, so on and so forth. Now, these are the number of sales in that particular neighborhood. Now, let's say we have some sales at $90,000, got some sales at 100, some at 110, like a small number right here. And then at 200, we're starting to get some sales, maybe some right before it too, 190, 180. Okay, this is what most neighborhoods look like if you were to be able to break it down in a chart like this. Houses down here are typically the ones that are outdated. And actually, if you were able to back up even further to like $50,000 houses, $60,000 houses, there would probably be some sales back here. These are houses that are like really bombed out. But we're looking at these houses, at least for our example. So you're buying these outdated houses. And as a flipper, what you're doing is forcing the appreciation, and you're making them worth what I call here the range of comps. That says ROC, the range of comps. That's the after repair value range. That's your comparative analysis, saying all these houses in the neighborhood that are up to date, like I'm going to do my renovation, are worth around this amount when they're done. That's how I know what I'm going to sell it for and what I'm shooting for. But this is where the problem comes in, is because I actually call this the HGTV dilemma. You guys go and watch the HGTV shows and you see that they walk through the house and they have their artistic designs. They're going through each bathroom and they're saying, ooh, which tile do you want? Tarek or whatever his name is. And then they go into the kitchen and they're like, oh, we're going to do this beautiful thing. Well, that's not actually how flipping usually works out. And now I'm not sitting here saying that you need to cut corners. What I'm saying is you need to look at what these houses sold for and understand that things haven't sold beyond that because, well, that neighborhood probably doesn't support houses selling for more than that. So when you go do a really overdone renovation, when you go do special custom work on all the bathrooms and the kitchen and you spend extra money to do that because you think that people are going to buy it, you're trying to push over here, but there's no evidence to support that. And as flippers, we're scientific about what we do. We only do what we know is going to work, and we don't know that's going to work. And this is where a lot of people get themselves in trouble. They think, well, if I do all this extra work, somebody's going to come in there and buy it. No, probably not. They'll go to a nicer neighborhood and buy a house in that neighborhood instead of this neighborhood. I like to think about this like, let's say you go into like this truck stop diner and you're hungover or whatever. You want some greasy food to like really tie you over. And the waitress comes out, puts a menu in front of you, and there's these dainty gourmet meals that are like tiny, $50 a plate. And you're like, what the heck? I came in here to get a $10 omelet because I'm trying to fill my stomach. And so now the owner of that restaurant has two options. Either they're going to sell you that dainty $50 meal for the $10 you came in with, or you're going to pick up and go to the truck stop diner that actually sells you the greasy food that you wanted in the first place. And that's what happens in these neighborhoods is if you overdo, try to sell gourmet meals in a truck stop diner neighborhood, nobody's buying it. They're going to go to the houses that are selling for what they came for. But this is not the only way that people over renovate houses. This here is the HGTV dilemma, or what I like to call it is the gentrifier, right? Because when you're trying to, I don't know if this is a word, if it was, that's how I would spell it. When you're trying to push the house past the value that has been set on the high end in that neighborhood, you are pushing the prices of that neighborhood. Maybe somebody will bite, but you're taking a huge risk, similar to speculating. You're hoping that somebody comes along and does that, but there's no data to support that. Next is the give a mouse a cookie. I have kids, so I read them books before they go to bed, and there's a book, Give a Mouse a Cookie, Give a Moose a Muffin. There's a whole series. But anyway, the way it goes is if the mouse got a cookie, and once he had the cookie, he needed some milk to go with it. Once he had the milk, he had some other stuff that he had to go with it, and it all goes around and around. This is what happens in houses, is you go in and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to redo the floors. You redo the floors, and then you see the floors next to the older trim, and you're like, gosh, I probably should update that trim. And once you put the new trim in, then you realize the walls need painted. But once you paint those new walls, then you see that the fresh paint next to the cabinets make the cabinets look really bad. So then you have to maybe paint the cabinets or redo the cabinets, but that makes the countertop look bad. And then you need a backsplash. And before you know it, your $50,000 budget went to a $100,000 budget. But once again, my graph's gone, but the neighborhood only supports so much. So basically, you just spent that money on the renovation and you're not getting it back. Maybe you get a little bit back, but you're not getting much back. All right, so that's the give a mouse a cookie. And the third one I call the host. All right, this one is classic, especially for new flippers, especially for people who watch too much HGTV. And what this sounds like is very simple. I think you'll get it. Is, oh, I wouldn't live in that house, so I need to do X, Y, and Z. But you're not flipping this for you, right? Taking that same example of the $200,000 house. Is that the house that you're living in? Maybe not. Maybe it is, whatever. But that's the thing that people get in their heads is, oh, I would really want this in my bathroom, therefore I'm going to put it. And you got to think about this. If you go in some higher end, like new built houses, you'll recognize that they're all very basic. They have some upgraded features, probably ones that they're buying in bulk because they're doing multiple new builds at the same time, but it is not super high end stuff. The only time you see the types of things that you might see on those shows is in super custom houses where you go find a builder and you say, hey, I'll pay you way too much money to build me exactly what I want. But that's not what you're doing as a real estate investor. Now, I don't want you guys to think that means cutting corners. Cutting corners is a totally different thing. That's where you're taking safety and liability items that need to be done to make a house safe, and you're cutting those out. You're doing things where you know it's not going to meet a codes enforcement inspection. That is being a corner cutter. But being smart about a renovation is not cutting corners. It's being a strategic investor. You have nothing to be shy about. It's when you start hiding things that you should have done. That's when there's something to worry about. Now, it's very simple. What you need to do to make this work is you simply build a smart scope of work. And it's a lot easier than you think. It's really 3 steps. Number 1, safety and liability. Like I said, if you are not making sure that the safety items, codes enforcement items are taken care of, then you are a cutter corner. You are a corner cutter. Yep. And really, you shouldn't be in this game. You're the one that gives us bad name in the industry. You really need to take care of these things. Next is we're going to do what I call the baseline. Remember, we did the range of comps. We figured out what other houses in the neighborhood were selling for and what finishes they had. And you are going to do the same finishes that the other people in the neighborhood have done, because if you do more than that, then you're trying to push the house past, you're becoming the gentrifier. So you're doing the baseline, same finishes as everybody else. And here is where I like to say that there is actually a third type of appreciation. There's the forced appreciation that we talked about. There's the market appreciation, which you have absolutely no control over. And then there's the psychological appreciation. And that's where this big 3 comes in. Now, I've done a lot of content about this, so I'm going to hit it really short right now. But the big 3 is basically after you've done the safety and liability, after you've done the baseline, now you'll pick like 3 things in the house. It's like the first 3 things that people see, probably the landscaping, like the entryway as people are pulling up to the house. And then the first couple things they see when they walk in the front door. Like you're going to assess how people would be walking up to the property because you put a filter on the house. Basically, they see those first three things and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this house. And then everything they see throughout the rest of the house, they kind of see with rose colored glasses. So you take all those baseline items, you made those seen through the rose colored filtered glasses, and it makes everything feel nicer. And that's how you get just a little bit more money for the house without having to put a lot of extra money into it. Now, that's how you deal with over renovating. I also did a whole video about my scope of work template and how I break down a job in phases. I put that link in the description, so check that out. Now, finally, the build a great team. This is the most commonly given crappy advice out there. And in essence, it's good advice, but it's so misunderstood. You see, I came from a corporate background. When I was early in my career, I had a corporate job, made pretty good money, and did the whole corporate thing, the whole corporate leadership thing, where you're learning all the different rules from all the different books. And it really does work in that setting when people work for the corporation and you're kind of the person in the middle of the corporation and the people who work in the corporation if you're in a leadership position. But then when you go out on your own, which you're on your own because you're a real estate investor, you own your own business, and you're hiring small businesses who also own their own business, and they are thinking about their priorities, which is their own business, and that's okay. It's putting food on their plate and the people who work for their companies' plates. That doesn't mean that they don't care about you. It means that you're not the priority. You see, you go back to the corporate world and their priority is their job, and you are the person in between the company and the person. Here, you are the person, and it absolutely does make a difference. And this is what I think this advice does to people, is it ends up making them think that they can be nice to people, which you should be. But you can just be nice to people and put total blind trust in them because they are the person that is in whatever that category is. Maybe a real estate agent, maybe a attorney, maybe the CPA, maybe the contractor, maybe the wholesaler. They are that person of the industry. Therefore, you can blindly trust them to do the thing. But remember, their priority is not your business. It's their business. That doesn't mean that they don't want to take care of you and in your business, because them taking care of you means they get repeat business and so on and so forth. But it is not their priority. Their priority is growing their own business, and you need to take that into account. When I was still out there doing construction jobs for clients, in addition to my flip houses, I got a call from one of these customers saying, hey, my kitchen is raining. And so I rushed over there to figure out what was going on. And we had done a bathroom renovation on a bathroom that was right above the kitchen. So I knew that there must be a water leak in there somewhere, but I had hired like top of the line tile guys to do the shower, custom shower that we built there. And so, they were doing jobs at Lowe's, they were doing jobs at Home Depot. They had a whole bunch of reviews. I thought, oh, these guys are legit. I can totally turn my back to them. And anyway, water's leaking. So I had to open up the wall to figure out where the leak was, open up this wall. And sure enough, in the PEX line, there was Fix-All tape around it. Fix-All tape is like advanced duct tape. It's like one of those as seen on TV, Billy Mays things where, you're supposed to be able to put it on anything. You can fix a shovel with it. You can fix a whatever. You can't fix a PEX water line at this particular house, by the way, and you certainly shouldn't. That is by no means code. That is absolutely cutting corners. But these guys were supposed to be some of the best. Obviously they weren't. I put blind trust in them, and that's what happened. I should have been there managing my expectations, and I wasn't. It's always been a rule for me that I need to see things before we close up the walls, but obviously in this case, I did not. And that's with contractors. And so a lot of people expect this kind of stuff from contractors, not necessarily rightfully so, but that is the way that most people think about contractors. But also with a real estate agent. I bought this house and it had a house on one lot. It was a double lot. The other lot was completely vacant. So I was going to build a new house on the vacant lot, renovate the other house. It was going to be a great deal for me. And then we had to clear a bunch of trees. And then I look up after we clear these trees and there's power lines going overhead. You can't build under power lines. And I was pissed. I was early in my career. I was pissed at this real estate agent thinking, well, gosh, this guy should have told me that there were power lines here. Like, he should be checking that stuff, right? To make sure that I don't have issues like that. Why else do I hire a real estate agent? They're supposed to protect me from these types of things, right? Well, no, they shouldn't really be there to do anything for you except for give you comps, which you verify, as we talked about earlier, and put your house on the market and do some marketing. They're marketers. That's their main job. And so why should I expect something outside of the norm for them? But that happened to me because I just gave blind trust. I thought that they had the whole thing covered, which this is the point here, guys. That's what I thought a real estate agent should be doing without taking the time to learn exactly what they were doing. Obviously, I learned after that experience, but what you need to do when you're hiring people is that you need to take the time to learn their trade, whatever it is. Learn their trade. If it's a contractor, if it's a real estate agent, if it's a CPA, does that mean that you need to be a CPA? You need to go to school to learn to be a CPA? No, but you got to take the time to at least understand the general job that they do, what their expectations should be, and understand what they're doing. So when they come and talk to you, you understand that and you can make decisions that are best for your business, because once again, they are not making the best decisions for your business necessarily. They are probably trying to do well by you, but they don't understand everything like you understand in your own business because they don't have the time and energy to prioritize everything about your life and the way that your business is set up. That is on you. So you need to at least understand in general what they do. So take the time to learn. Number 2 is you need to set clear expectations. This goes with every contractor you hire. I'm not just talking about, I'm talking while I'm writing. I'm sure I spelled that wrong, but if you scribble, you don't actually know what I wrote. With contractors, yes, of course, the actual guys that do trades, you need to set clear expectations so you can hold accountability later, which is actually number 3 here. Hold accountability ruthlessly to the expectations that you both agree upon. Same thing. Don't know how to spell well, so if I write real small, you probably can't see it. Set expectations and hold accountability. You can't hold accountability without setting very clear expectations. This is not just for trades contractors. When I say contractors, a lot of times I also mean wholesalers, real estate agents, CPAs, attorneys, anybody that is not an employee of yours that is doing work for your business is a contractor, 1099 contractor. You need to make sure you understand their stuff well enough to be able to set clear expectations. You need to be able to set clear expectations and communicate them in a way that they understand. Therefore, you can hold accountability to those expectations. See, I say that multiple times because a lot of people think they set expectations like, hey, I want X, Y, and Z. And if it wasn't clearly set with them, if you didn't set it written, verbally, maybe even with some media, well, you didn't really set expectations. They might not understand what you were trying to say. They might have heard something different than what you thought you were saying to them. And there's a train coming, so I'm going to stop for a second. No, I'm not. Let's just go with it. If you have not set expectations and you try to hold accountability, if they haven't understood the expectations you set and you try to hold this accountability, you're just being a micromanager. You have no ground to stand on to hold this accountability. But if you have done this step, number 2, correctly, if you know without a shadow of a doubt that you have done your job and you've communicated this, you know that they understood it, then absolutely hold accountability ruthlessly. Okay, now, as you grow, then yes, you can start to build a great team. After you understand and you can actually hold people accountable for the things that you know you need for your business, that you know you've told them that you needed, then you can start to build a great team. But a lot of people just do the thing where, hey, that person's in the industry, I'm going to blindly trust them, and I guarantee you, you will get bad results. I've gotten some of the worst results possible that way. Now, I know that this seems like a lot. I know that it seems like, oh gosh, I was kind of concerned about getting started as a real estate investor. Now I'm super concerned because that's a lot, but it's not really. Guys, just being cognizant of the things that could go wrong will help you to avoid those things. It's actually way more simple than it seems. And that's where this Bubba comes into play here. This is not his actual name. It was a name, though, that was surprisingly not much different than that. But early in my career, I was going on an appointment to buy a house, and there was this guy that owned 50 houses, and I could find no mortgages. When I looked up the data online, no mortgages on 50 houses. Dude owns 50 houses in cash. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to meet this guy. He's probably going to be a stud. And anyway, I pull up to the house to meet the guy, and he's not on time. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? I look out in the parking lot, and there's an HVAC service truck. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask this guy if he knows where Bubba is. And the guy gets out, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm Bubba. And I'm like, nah, man, can't be, right? This guy's an HVAC service tech. There's no way he owns 50 houses in cash. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars of wealth, of equity for this guy. Sure enough, it is him. And so we get through this house. I didn't actually get the deal on the house, but I'm like, hey, man, how do you own 50 houses outright? And he goes, oh, man, crazy story. Well, my neighbor was wanting to sell their house. And so I went up to the bank and said, hey, will you give me the money to buy this house? Bank gave me the money to buy the house, did a little bit of work on it, and then I put a tenant in it. The tenant paid me rent every month. I used the rent money to pay the mortgage, and then another neighbor wanted to sell their house. And so I went to the bank and said, hey, can you give me money to purchase this house? And sure enough, they gave me the money. I did the same thing, put a tenant in it, took the tenant's rent money, used it to pay the mortgage off, and I did that 48 more times. And after that, time went on. And after so many years, the mortgages were all gone. And that conversation changed my life because I realized I don't need any special skills. All I need to do is what I already know how to do. And that's put my head down and work my butt off. And I know that I'm going to make mistakes early on, but the key for me is to stay in the game and keep working at it, because over time you learn all these things and you don't go easily make those mistakes. It might seem complex right now. It might seem like there's a lot of things to remember, but over time it becomes second nature to you. The guy, Bubba, the HVAC service tech, he did this. He owns 50 houses outright, great houses. He has his future is set up for him. It's set up for his kids and probably his kids after that. And it does not take anything special to do this. What it takes is for you to take the first step, to start getting in the game, to start gaining knowledge. And eventually you'll get your first house, and then you'll gain experience, and then knowledge times experience equals skills. And once you have skills, that's the ultimate asset. That's the ultimate wealth. And you guys will be able to create the same thing that my friend Bubba did. And if you guys want to know more about why you need to flip houses, why you need to invest in real estate, what the 5 best reasons are, well, I made a whole video about it. Check it out. Or if you've already seen that one, let's see what the YouTube algorithm says that you should be watching of mine next. Thanks.